I really messed up. Earlier this year, I posted a video where I built a huge Greek kingdom, which is my biggest build I've ever made, at least until this video. I was stupid, and in the title I said the build was the biggest Minecraft kingdom ever built. It turns out I was wrong, and a lot of people let me know that in the comments. But today I want to try and fix that, or at least over the next year, as this is going to take me a while. To do that, I met up with my friend Freya, who is a professional with World Painter, which if you're not aware is a tool used to make giant custom Minecraft terrain. I basically asked him to add an extra island so that I can make the kingdom bigger. But instead he sent back this huge expansion with 4 new islands which are all bigger than the original. Together they make up what will soon be the biggest Minecraft empire, made up of 5 huge kingdoms and easily over 1 billion blocks. Each of these kingdoms are going to have a unique theme, which I'm not going to tell you yet as I want it to be a surprise. But I have some huge things planned, especially for the central island. What I can tell you though is that this island right here is going to have an Aztec theme. I'd love to give each island a unique name to fit their character. So if you have any name ideas for the Greek kingdom or for this Aztec kingdom while you're watching the video, please make sure to leave it in a comment. Anyway, for now, before we get building, I want to tell you my plan for this Aztec kingdom. This kingdom is going to be a lot of fun to build, as it's going to be split into a lot of unique areas. I don't want to tell you too much about the lore of each area as I'll explain it as we go, but in summary, there are going to be a lot of temples, including a grand temple, a snake temple, a magma temple, and a ruined temple. Scattered in villages between these will be plenty of houses to hold the population, each with unique themes to fit their areas. There will also be some other cool things to explore, like huge volcanoes, a giant statue, plenty of boats around the island, and lots of trees, as you could probably guess that a jungle would have. There will also be some other surprises which I don't want to spoil just yet. They're going to be very cool though. Now that you know the plan though, let's begin. We're going to be starting with the main village, which will be overlooked by the Grand Temple. This temple is going to be huge, and from the top of it you'll be able to see the entire kingdom. And if your render distance is big enough, you'll even be able to see the Greek kingdom in the horizon. Before making the actual structure though, I wanted to start with some terrain. Sorry for the flickering grass, it goes away in a second. When I spoke with Freya about the terrain, I specifically asked for him to leave all of the islands flat, with only a few lakes and rivers. That way I can build my own terrain as I go, which is a lot easier than destroying terrain. I can also then customize it more to the buildings, which we're going to make, like by adding in this big mountain that the temple will be sat on. To finish the terrain, I made a bunch of jungle trees. These are going to be used all around the kingdom, and so I spent quite a lot of time on them. The trees all have lots of hanging vines to make them look more aged, with mushrooms growing out the sides of some of them. I was originally going to also add some palm trees for variety, but we're going to be adding lots of those into the next kingdom, and so I chose not to. But with the trees built, I then added them in all around the area. And then with the terrain done, we could finally get started on the temple. I don't want to spend too long showing you each temple as we're going to have a lot of them to build, so I'll speed up the footage quite a lot for you. For this temple though, I basically just wanted to make it look like a stereotypical Aztec temple, with decreasingly sized layers as you work your way up to the top of it, and huge staircases spanning down each side. This is going to be a place for worship, and was built for one of the gods who will soon also be making a giant statue of. They are important to the people of this kingdom, and so this temple had to be huge in order to honor them. My favorite part of this temple is probably the area on the top. I wanted to try and make it slightly more unique of a roof design, just to add some extra height to the build and to make it stand out more. I ended up going for this stretched out design, which I think looks quite cool. Finally, we need a way that people can actually get into the temple, or it's pretty useless. My idea was to add a large pathway which is raised above the tree level, to make the walk up to it feel more grand and special. On either side of this pathway would be a huge staircase, which would soon lead down to hundreds of houses. To line this pathway, I built up some path lamps with flames coming out the top of them, and then added these all along the path which we just built, with some grass patches to make it look more aged. With that, the temple was finished. Now we just need to build a village to surround it, which is going to be a big task. Before making any of the actual houses though, I built a few more small mountains around the area. The houses are going to be located in the flat land between these and the temple, with a small jungle forest between this area and the rest of the kingdom. This section will have more terrain than anywhere else in the kingdom though, apart from maybe the volcanic area, which we'll work on in a minute. But with these mountains done, I marked out where the paths would be using gold blocks as a placeholder. I then manually went around the edges of the path and added in some barrels and fences as a border, as well as a bunch of rocks around everything. If you don't like the gold, don't worry, I then switched it to more appropriate blocks for the path, adding in some tiles which are scattered around everything, to make the path look more decayed. I want this area to look very lived in, and so it's important to make the path look very worn out. The house designs were pretty difficult to come up with, as I've built a lot of more abandoned or ruined looking houses in the past, but never built something in this theme that's meant to look lived in. I used a lot of stone in the designs, which the people in the area would have exported from the mountains around the area to construct these with. I tried to add a couple of unique patterns, especially around the edges of the roofs to match the style you see in a lot of old Aztec builds. For the shapes of the houses, I tried to add a lot of unique parts and diagonal sections, so once these are all pasted in and rotated around, you won't be able to tell that they're the same house. As I mentioned before though, we're going to be building a bunch of other themed houses for other areas as we go, so these designs will be exclusively for the two main villages. The second one we'll get to later in this video. I spent about an hour pasting these houses around the kingdom, trying to fit them all in a way that looked realistic. If they were too close or too far from each other, it would ruin the pathway. To connect the path in a few locations, I then added in some bridges, using more wooden bridges to cross smaller rivers, and giant bulky stone bridges to cross thicker rivers. Once we're done, I want the path to connect to every area in this kingdom, so you can do one big loop around the map. As one of the final touches, it was important to surround the village with giant stone walls. Considering some of the villages neighbouring it, defence is very important. To make the walls, I began by building up some huge fire towers. I originally made this tower, but then realised it was probably too small, so I moved it upwards and extended the tower downwards. I then built in the air where I wanted the wall to go, before thickening it and adding a pathway along the top. Manually placing all the hopper barriers onto the edges of the wall took me ages, but once it was done, I moved the wall downwards to fit the edge of the area, and then added the towers in along it to help light the wall, so if anyone is ever attacking, you'll be able to see them very clearly. In two locations, I then made a hole in the wall and built some gates as entry points. Other than by water, these are the only way to get in and out of the village. And then to finish the entire area, I went around and added some small unique areas to breathe life into the build. These mostly included a lot of market areas, as well as fountains, banners hanging down from the roofs, market stalls and some other decorations. I even created this small fishing area along one of the riversides, with a fish cooking stall where you can either buy cooked fish or you can catch your own and cook it there. There's even a small dining area next to it with a couple of tables. But with that, the first village was finished, and now we're about 1/5 of the way done. Moving on from the main village and Grand Temple, we're now going to make a slightly smaller area. But despite it being smaller, it's a much more exciting place to explore in my opinion, and this is going to be the Magma Temple and Volcanic Realm. Unlike any other area in the kingdom, a lot of it is going to be built in the ground, and so I began by shaping some huge volcanoes and then excavating a hole in the ground. For the layout of this area, I want there to be some thin paths of terrain, which connect the main platforms where temples will be located. I also mixed a lot of sand in with the grass to make it blend a bit better, and to make it look a lot more desolate. As you can see, there's also lava overflowing out of the volcanoes, which leads down into the lava pit below the path. One wrong move and you'd be pretty much doomed forever. And now for the main part of the area, the Magma Temple. I used a very dark colour scheme to build this, with lots of blackstone and some deep slate, but mostly blackstone. As I designed it, I also used gilded blackstone where I wanted there to be lava, which I'll switch out at the end. Incorporating lava into the design will really help to make the temple stand out and impose over the area. I kept the design very tall and thin, inspired by this fire temple that I saw online, created by Gunship Revolution. If you're wondering about the purpose of this temple, it was built for the Magma King, who came from the Nether to watch over these volcanic lands. There will be no houses in this area as nobody lives here other than him and his guards, who I'll show you in a moment. Towards the top of the temple, I added in some spiked designs to make it look a lot more threatening, before capping off the build with a unique roof design that has lava flowing out of it. I felt it looked a bit strange with how tall and thin it was, and so I then decided to add some towers onto either side of the temple, with a lava aqueduct connecting each. Finally, I then changed the gilded blackstone to lava, and as you can see, this looks especially cool at nighttime. Moving on to the interior, I didn't want to add much as the main focus is the exterior of the kingdom, but I wanted there to be something inside. I ended up adding this room which is flooded by lava fountains, with a small parkour in the center that leads up to very valuable treasure. Leaving the temple, I then decorated the rest of the area to fit the design. I added in huge archways to frame the pathway, and lots of magma scales on the side of the terrain, as well as big obsidian spikes and even more boulders. Hanging from some locations are also these cages, which are home to blazes to help guard the temple. And also you might have noticed I also quickly made a second temple, which is much smaller than the magma temple but works as a nice ornament for the area, and connects to a bridge. Following this dangerous bridge, you're led to the portal room. This nether portal has been hung in this room by chain, and is the portal that the Magma King uses to enter the nether, to find blazes and other mobs to protect his realm. With those additions, the lava realm was completed. Next up on our list of areas to build is the midway point in our project, which is another big village area. This will be similar to the first village that we created with the Grand Temple, but instead of having a temple, it will have a giant statue of the kingdom's most important god, which overlooks the entire area. Just like the first village, I surrounded it entirely by big walls, before building up a big raised area at the back which the statue will be placed on top of. For the pathway, I kept it similar to the one that we made earlier, with some slightly different blocks mixed in, just to add some variety. The people who live in this part of the kingdom will be very similar to the people living in the previous village. In fact, most of the population would have relatives in each. Originally, these two villages were actually joint. However, after disagreements broke out, the village split into two, with one half getting the temple and the other getting the statue. Now the only way to get from one to the other is by a long trek through the Volcanic Realm, or through the Snake Cult's land, which is a lot more dangerous. Moving on to the raised area, I created a small plaza with a large flower bed, surrounded by some trees and market stalls. Around all of these, I then added in some more houses, where the richest people would live, as the views from up here are the best in the kingdom. I then reached out to my friend Chloriz, who is a professional statue maker, and I asked him to make a giant statue which I could place, looking over the entire kingdom. The statue is of Tlaloc, the Aztec god of rain and weather. Considering this kingdom and all of the others are entirely surrounded by water, weather is the most important thing to the population. One bad storm could destroy their entire ecosystem, and because of that, the entire kingdom prays to these gods. As you can see, the statue is visible from any of the houses in the village, and always looks really cool. When I do some cinematic shots of the entire build at the end of the video, you'll especially be able to see this from other areas, not just this village. And then to finish off this village, I added in two entranceways, one connecting to the Volcano Realm, and the other leading to where the Snake Cult will be. Before we get to that really cool area though, there's one other thing I want to build in this village, to help differentiate it from the previous one. To make this expansion to the village, I opened up two doorways in the wall on the back of the village. I made two instead of one as there'd be a lot of crowds here. This area at the back is going to be the docks. While attached to the village, it will have its own population of people, who live very different life to the people in the main village. Here people will be in charge of fishing and exploring the rest of the kingdoms by boat. After building a platform for the town to be built on, I added a large boat dock at the end of it, where we'll soon have some boats parked. For now though, there's just a bunch of cargo stored there. Before building those boats though, I want to add the houses. These are going to have a unique design to the rest of the houses in the kingdom. Instead of being built out of stone, they've been constructed out of bamboo. All of these houses are slightly smaller than the previous ones, with flatter roofs and more open designs with extra windows. Pasting these down, I tried to keep them as tightly packed as possible, with a pathway down the centre straight to the boat dock not being covered by houses. As you'd probably expect by now, I then went around and added in a bunch of market stalls. These ones would exclusively sell fish and boating utilities, like extra supplies for ships, so that people can gear up before setting sail. For the design of the boat, I made them pretty similar to the Greek ones, not on purpose, but because I wanted them to be big rowing ships, with one main large sail. I added some cargo onto them and a small cabin in the center, before pasting them all down around the edges of the kingdom. As well as this, I created a small extension to the boat dock, where smaller canoes can be boarded. These would be for smaller singular groups of people, and would be more ideal for fishing than exploring. But with that, this expansion to the village was completed. Now we can move on to my favorite area, the snake cult. As I just mentioned, this is my favorite part of the entire kingdom, and we're going to be starting it by building the Snake Temple. This area of the kingdom is where the snake cult live, who are a dangerous tribe that nobody on the island wants to mess with. Unlike the other villages, this is the only area that doesn't have walls around it, as there are no outside threats. The cult is all based around this temple, which is said to have giant serpents living in a cave underneath it, whose glow lights up the entire cavern. The people of this village worship the snakes in the temple. However, nobody who's entered it has ever made it out of it alive. The temple is also where sacrifices are made every day, to help keep the snakes underground, so that they don't rise up out of the temple to feed, assuming there are actually snakes inside. Once the temple was finished, I added some extra decorations like these spikes on the corners, to make it look more dangerous, and then I built up a grand staircase which leads inside, in case anyone is actually feeling brave enough to enter. Another popular activity in the snake cult, other than sacrificing people, is snake fights. This is where unlucky warriors will be placed in an arena with nothing but a stick, and challenged to fight against the most dangerous snakes that people can find. People ultimately attend these fights to watch people lose. These fights all take place in this circular arena that I built, which sits thousands of people. As you can see, the actual fighting arena is in a deep pit, to keep viewers safe from the snakes and to keep opponents from running away. To help keep the snakes and viewers shaded, I added some bright red cover over the top of the arena, using red wool and carpets, which is practical but also makes it look more imposing. Just like the other village areas, I then covered the entire thing in paths, but this time I kept it to a more dirt-based colour scheme. Originally, I wanted to just reuse the same houses as earlier. I knew they probably wouldn't fit in, but I wanted to just get the build completed. But I pushed and I created this whole new set of houses to cover the area with, which each include a much darker colour scheme than the ones found in the other villages. I also used plenty of reinforced deep slate in the designs, as I thought it looked quite similar to a snake's scales. Once all of the houses were pasted in, I surrounded the area in market stalls and trees, and then added a bridge connecting it to the previous area. I then came up with this small path torch design to paste around the area for light. Finally, to finish the area up, I added in some small locations like a small market that's selling snakes, which you'd find all over the village. I also added in these underground cells, where future sacrifices would be held before they're taken to the snake temple. And then I added a giant snake statue which my friend Chloriz once again created, which would have been built to appease the snakes underground. They'll hopefully never come up to see it, but it's the thought that counts. Maybe they'd see it, feel bad and go back underground to leave everyone alone. But with that, there's only one thing left to build and then we're done. This is the final plot of land in the entire kingdom. To decorate it, I added in the terrain, which is just very rugged and mountainous. And then I added in this lost temple which has been overgrown, with a ruined statue made by my friend Bobgeam. From here, I then added in plenty of houses which are all raised above the ground to keep them safe from snakes, and then I flooded the entire area with trees to complete the lost tribe as well as the entire Aztec kingdom. If you enjoyed this video and want to see me complete the Ultimate Empire, please leave a like. I'll begin work on the next kingdom at 10,000 likes. It's going to be a really good one. Also, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. If you get a chance, leaving a comment really helps to boost the video, and I enjoy reading every single comment. I'd love to hear your name ideas for the kingdom. Make sure to upvote your favourite ones. I'll let you know which is chosen in the next video. I'll see you soon and thank you for watching. Goodbye.